Happy New Year. We'll get started. Happy New Year. Thank you for being here. The Board of Education meeting is now called to order. If you choose, would you please join us in solemn prayer? Thank you. If you would mind, please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance for our country. Salute. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. White, would you call roll to establish the board?
Deanna Bond.
Here.
Craig Kelly.
Here.
Herman Kendrick.
Here.
Amy Madonna.
Here.
Amy Tosney.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum for the January meeting. Would you see the agenda in front of you for today's board meeting? Could I have a motion to adopt the agenda? Got a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
This passes. I just had to drive about 200 miles, so please forgive me if I'm scatterbrained because I am. So we'll now have recognition time. Mr. Gaston, would you lead us?
Good evening. We'll start our recognitions tonight with Charles Daniel Van, who is here tonight with his family. Mr. Van will be making his way up. He is the art teacher at Rocky Ridge Elementary School, right here next to the Board of Education. We'll advance to this next slide. I can show you a video from his classroom when I visited back in December. I think it was the only day you guys were not doing art projects. Yeah. So that's how it always works. But he has been named the new Professional Art Educator of the Year by the Alabama Art Education Association. So congratulations to him.
Congratulations. Thank you very much.
All right. Next up, Kevin Pewsley, Berry Middle School. He is here tonight. No stranger, of course, to this room. We recognized him earlier this year for a separate accolade. This time he's been named the Alabama Middle School Science Teacher of the Year. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Thank you.
And we won't take a ton of time here, but another little video from his classroom. They did a earthquake shake project. What was it called? Is that it?
Yes.
Earthquake shake. And you'll see some footage here. We'll just watch a couple of seconds of it where I guess they make a device for everything. There's a device that shakes things. So, but anyway, the students had a fun time doing that, and of course a lot of science and geometry and math involved in that, and so a lot of fun there. Thank you for that invitation to the school that day. Next up is Julie Altmark, Shades Mountain Elementary School. In fact, I was in her classroom earlier today. She has been named the Alabama Teacher of the Year by the Alabama Association of Gifted Children. Congratulations. And again, just a small clip today. And if you really want to get tired, hang out with gifted children all day long. They will ask a lot of questions. They will challenge you on your answers, and very interesting environment there. So thank you again for that invitation to your classroom. Perfect school bus inspection scores. Just a few weeks ago, we received this notice here from the state superintendent's office. Dr. Mackey, specifically his Department of Pupil Transportation. Once again, Hoover City Schools has received perfect inspection scores. You can see a photo there on the screen. There is an image capture of that letter that came into our superintendent, Dr. Murphy, and of course our Director of Transportation, Mr. Jeremy Bradford, who is here tonight. Would you and some of your mechanics come forward while I explain this accolade? If I can direct your attention to the screen here. Of course, this is an annual inspection. Currently, we have approximately 166 buses, or at least 166, which took part in this particular annual inspection. None had major deficiencies as defined by the State Department of Education. The state average, at least 1% of bus fleets have major deficiencies. So this group you see in front of you right here helps keep all of our transported kids safe. Let's give them a round of applause. Here for one photo. Oh boy. This one just a little bit.
Act like we love each other.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
John.
Okay, this next group, also no stranger, a different set of students, but no stranger in terms of accolades for this room. The Academy of Craft Training, both of our high schools, Hoover and Spain Park, send students up to the Lakeview District in Birmingham to participate in this hybrid, real-life simulated environment. These are our students, and let me read you, I don't have their names on the screen, but John Walters, Hoover High School, December Employee of the Month for Welding. Paul Norris, Hoover High School, December Employee of the Month for Building Construction. Justice Hicks, Spain Park High School, December Employee of the Month for HVAC. Khalil Stewart, Spain Park High School, December Employee of the Month for Masonry. Are these students here tonight? And if so, would you come forward? Let's come back for a quick photo real quick. I'll line up here in the center if you would. Just have to be in the center. There we go. Hold your certificate up. As you can see, we have some proud parents here tonight. Any friends and family of any of our honorees, would you please stand tonight? And finally, Dr. Murphy, Mr. Kelly, and board members, it is school board, we'll get back to that, proclamation we have tonight for School Board Member Appreciation Month. So as many of you see, there are a lot of goodies right in front of them tonight. Our schools have been very generous in providing some accoutrement for you guys to show appreciation for the time you give throughout the school year, throughout the calendar year actually, for what you do. And this is a byproduct of the Alabama Association of School Boards. We have a proclamation. We'll read just a few lines of it and make it quick. Whereas school board members recognize the importance of public education in our community, and whereas our students, employees, and community members appreciate the vital roles played by those individuals who, as local school board members, establish policies and ensure an efficient, effective school system, and whereas school board members serve as voices enabling our community to preserve local management and control of our public schools, and whereas school board members are charged with representing our local education interests at the local, state, and federal levels. Now therefore be it resolved that the Hoover Board of Education joins the Alabama Association of School Boards, and other organizations, and proclaiming the month of January as School Board Member Recognition Month. Congratulations and thanks for all that you do. And finally, if you guys will recognize this graphic here, you'll be seeing a lot of this in social media, parent newsletters coming from principals, social media. The Be Kind Week, this will be the second year that we do this in February, so please take note, be on the lookout. Thank you for your time.
Board members, before we move on, let me also thank you so much for your leadership for our school district, and it's a pleasure to work with you and to learn from you, so thank you.
This is public participation tonight. Or anyone, if you just show me your hand for now, that want to participate? Okay, we appreciate you being here. Just a few guidelines. Some of them are for policy and code, so please let me read them. Please state your name and address, the topic that you're speaking on. If you represent an organization, please name that organization. Please be reminded that the good name and character cannot be addressed in public comment. Individual student discipline matters cannot be addressed per our policy here, so that cannot be addressed. And for the sake of time with all of us here, please limit your time to 3 minutes. And anyone would like to step forward, and we're glad to listen.
Arnold Singer, President of the Hoover Historical Society. Thanks to Carlo and Diane Joseph, a major problem has been solved. The beneficiaries will be the Hoover City School students who visit our Folklore Center, which is across Cloudland Drive from the historic Hale Joseph House. The Josephs are providing access to their bathhouse commode. We are encouraging schools to check with the teachers at Bluff Park regarding the quality and benefits of our program. So this, having facilities for visiting students throughout the district was a very important thing for us to overcome. And the Josephs, by the way, are sponsors of one of the high school senior graduation scholarships that we award. Separately, there's a beautiful piece of art, actually 3 pieces, known as a triptych, over the inside door leading up and down the stairs, as well as to the Sunbach Lee Sellers Gallery that opened in 2005 in the old Bluff Park School building. The artist was Elizabeth Holmes, the daughter of William Hoover Sr., who created to memorialize her view from the bluff. Ms. Holmes recalled her AP art teacher, Sellers, promoted her students over her own artwork. Our request is, if possible, to retain the doorway in the revitalization of this historic building, thereby saving the triptych. In case you're wondering what a triptych is, it's 3 pictures or paintings in separate but adjoining frames, so that it appears as one, and it's a beautiful picture. Quite separately, I forgot to write this down. We all know of the sad events regarding Karen King, but I want to relate that early in 2017, Karen King got in touch with the Historical Society because she was concerned about what would happen upon her retirement to the historic handcrafted yearbooks that go back many decades. We have at least so far seen back to 1953 when it was referred to as the Bluff Park School. We will be taking the rest of these yearbooks, and it's going to be part of our Karen King collection, which includes yearbooks from many other organizations in Hoover.
Thank you,
So-
Mr. Senator. Can you follow up? I'd sure would like to thank the Josephs here and look at considerations on the artwork that possibly and certainly care. Thank you for mentioning that.
Well, you know, we care, and you know, we work great with the Board of Education, and we thank them for working things out with the city for the Folklore Center.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Madison Turner. I live Magnolia Trace, Hoover. And when you last heard about me, I was a senior at Hoover High School, planning to drop out and get my GED. I just want to briefly address how I got to that point and what happened after. To start with, I am a gifted and talented autistic student who struggled early in school, but managed to find my niche in a school in Colorado and what happened when I moved to Alabama. So in elementary school and middle school, I was not a challenged student. I was socially awkward and I started to make friends. But luckily when I transferred to my high school, was a STEM school in Colorado, I would manage to make friends, was challenged and was officially part of the gifted and talented program. For 10th grade, I took advantage of an opportunity known as dual enrollment and did 2 semesters full-time at a college, earning 28 college credits. When we moved to Alabama, I skipped a year in school and was admitted as a senior. However, in order to do so, I was forced to take 9th and 10th grade classes because they said I had to. I felt insulted and almost as if I was being punished for being gifted and talented. And I refused to be belittled like that. So we withdrew myself from Hoover and was admitted to a private school where I was able to continue my dual enrollment. And as of now, I'm taking classes this semester at Jefferson State. I have been accepted into the University of Alabama in Huntsville, with a GPA of 3.7 as well as a ACT score of 30, and that qualifies me for a full tuition scholarship. And I also have multiple other colleges offering me large scholarships to go.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Of course.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Alicia Turner, Maddie's mom. Magnolia Trace, Hoover. I have a 17-year-old daughter that should be graduating from Hoover High School. Unfortunately, due to choices that Hoover High School made, she was denied her FAPE. We were not allowed participation in the 504 process, and she will be graduating from a private school in the area instead, a full year early, 40 credits of college work, costing us thousands of dollars and significant time away from work. When you last heard from us, we had a daughter that was very distraught and begging us to let her drop out of school and take the GED. She had a very difficult time transitioning back to the high school setting after being successful in a fully college climate. Maddie has 2 parents that were able to intervene. So I would like for you to consider a different scenario for students across the country and here in Hoover. I would like for you to consider, where would Maddie be today? What if Maddie did not start high school in Colorado in a program where she thrived?
What if Maddie was male instead of female? What if mom was a single mom working 2 jobs? What if mom had to take off work unpaid every time she needed to come to the school to figure out Maddie's academic plan? What if mom assumed you had the best interest of her daughter in mind and looked to you for guidance in the 504 IEP process? What if mom trusted you when you said Maddie is making progress? What if she was an underrepresented minority? What if we did not have the means to provide a private education? What if her father was not a specialist in the brain? What if her mother did not understand federal law protecting the family involvement in the 504 and IEP process? Statistically, if Maddie were an underrepresented minority male that is 17 and autistic, this person likely would have dropped out of high school and could be in trouble with the law. Maddie could be there if her parents didn't intervene and she wasn't in an environment where we were able to make different decisions. On multiple occasions, we have stated that we did not want to take legal action. We had no intention of ever doing that. We wanted to have off-the-record conversations with you to bring about change for the next generation of autistic children. We wanted to protect families that will come after us. In September, when we met with Dr. Murphy, the question was, what do you want? What is your outcome? Maddie never intended to come back to Hoover, and we said, we want stricter oversight for 504 and IEP process. We want to make sure what happened to Maddie doesn't happen to anyone else. We asked questions. We published statements ahead of time. We asked for directions on how to respect the chain of command. Most of our correspondence was left unanswered. We've shown nothing but respect to follow the process, but our requests have been ignored. Unfortunately, those actions will dictate our next steps. Approximately 65 years ago, there was another unanimous Supreme Court decision that school districts tried to ignore. Many like to pretend it had never happened. It was Brown versus Board of Education. When Supreme Courts make unanimous decisions, school districts have to listen. I leave you with a quote from your superintendent. We've got a moral imperative to get this right for all children, and that's my focus. Getting it right for all students includes twice exceptional future scientists that are socially awkward and highly anxious. And getting it right for them is not just offering them the minimum and calling it progress. They deserve to be challenged and educated in the most appropriate environment. Unfortunately, you have chosen not to do that, so someone else will make you. The Supreme Court is on our side.
Thank you, Dr. Anyone else tonight for public participation? Board, you have the minutes from the regular board meeting of November 13th, 2018, a special call meeting, December 11th, 2018. Dr. Murphy.
Board members, I respectfully request your approval of both minutes, November 13th, special call, December 11, 2018.
Board, do I have a motion to accept? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
This is approved. Next item on the agenda is personnel actions. Dr. Murphy.
Board members, you have before you our personnel report. It includes 13 individuals for employment, 4 requests for transfer, 5 leave of absence, 7 resignations, and 1 retirement. I would advise you that a couple of places where it notes new position, this really is the discontinuation of a Spur employee now becoming a Hoover employee. So it says new position, but it's a bit of a misnomer to suggest that. I ask your approval of the personnel report.
The motion to approve the personnel report is presented by Dr. Murphy.
So moved.
A second. Board, any questions on the personnel report and positions that you see here? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And this passes unanimously.
If I could mention a couple of individuals who are on our report. Is Wayne Smith with us? Wayne often attends. Wayne Smith. Wayne is retiring.
Sorry.
It's okay. Wayne is retiring after 31 years of employment in our school district. He's often with us, but I don't think he made it this evening. Is the director of our student services, has served this school district and our children well. I want to acknowledge him and regret he's not here, but we thank Wayne for the services that he's committed. Principals, you may have individuals on the agenda who've been approved.
I do. I'll introduce Nicole Stokes. She's my new assistant principal, former math coach, and wonderful teacher, and we're just so thankful that she's here. So thank you.
Principals?
And I'm Quincy Collins, principal at Trace Crossings Elementary School. We have Mrs. Becky Edwards. She is the current literacy coach at Glen Elementary School. So she'll be joining Trace Crossings Elementary School as our new assistant.
Notice board members, these guys keep stealing from each other, right? Are there other principals or other directors? I want to acknowledge Peggy Winstead. Peggy is coming on board for the remainder of this academic year to serve as our executive assistant to the superintendents, both me and Dr. Simmons, and continue to serve to help Dr. Dotson. Peggy comes with a wealth of experience, and I'll just acknowledge a little bit of her work. She has been in our school district since 2017, I believe July of 2017, serving as the face for us out as our receptionist and also assisting in human resources. She's also spent 11 years as an executive assistant, not to the superintendent, but to the chief operating officer in the Metropolitan Nashville Public Schools, and has also served in Williamson County Public Schools in Franklin, Tennessee, human resources specialist, has been the instructional technology secretary, has served as a human resources assistant and also a receptionist and secretary assisting the associate director for finance and administration. So she comes with lots of good stuff from working with administrators, receptionist, secretary, human resources, and also as an executive assistant. Peggy, we're glad to have you come on board to work with us in this capacity. But it just wouldn't be right if I also didn't come back and recognize Louise again. As you all know, Louise retired with us, and I went begging in January of this last year and said, would you come back and work with us? And she has done so for this last academic year. Louise, I'm just exceptionally grateful to you, not only for being a great support for me professionally, but you've become my friend. And so thank you so much for all the ways you've served the children in the school district.
Absolutely. Congratulations. Dr. Murphy, can we go over business items, please?
Yes, I'm going to have Tina come up. Board members, as you recall, the only item of business that we addressed in December was that of personnel. So this evening we'll address monthly financial statements for October, and also for November we'll talk about cash disbursements for October and also for November, and you'll have before you the payroll for November and December. So, Tina?
Board, before you have the financial statements for October. This is the first month of our fiscal year for FY19. 5.19% of budget revenue was received in October as of October 31, 2018. This is a favorable variance compared to the prior year period of $103,000. This is due to an increase in state funds and federal funds. The results of operations represent 1 month of activity. General fund expenditures were $187,000 less than the comparable period in FY18. We still owe $1.4 million on the Hoover High Band Room, which was included in the budget. The special fund revenue fund expenditures for 1 month were $1.9 million, or 10.62% of the budget. Special revenue expenditures are $308,000 more than the comparable period in FY18 due to classroom supplies and local school expenditures, which is typical of this time of month as we we send out those state funds to the schools and ask them to start spending their state money for their classroom instructional supplies. Any questions about October? All right, then we go ahead and do November or vote separately. How do you want to do that?
Are you okay if we put this together as a package?
Okay.
So moved.
Okay, so for November, you have the financial statements for the second month of the fiscal year of 2019. 16.19% of budget revenue has been received. The variance is favorable of $1.3 million, again due to an increase in state and federal funds. We have general fund expenditures show $1.7 million more than the comparable period in FY18 due to the purchase of buses, Hoover High band room expenditures, and River Chase Career Connection renovations. Those invoices have already come in for November. The purchase of buses, was that for our state allocation for fleet renewal, so that is a one-time purchase per year. The Hoover High band room, I think all we have left is the retainage on that, so we should have about one more invoice for that. And then we're just getting started on the River Chase Career renovations. Special revenue fund expenditures were $3.7 million or 20.16% of budget. Special revenue expenditures were $204,000 less in the comparable period due to a decrease in travel and training for the month of November, which is typical since it's a short month.
Very good.
Board members, I request your approval of those business action items.
Thank you, Dr. Murphy. Do I have a motion to approve these two business items? Got a second?
Second.
I do have a question. I believe Board of Equalization will start taking the property at 150 as it's now in retail and different use out of current use. I believe they meet in July, send out statements. Could you make sure that when that happens that we know what the appraised value is for everyone tax when that happens? I would think it's the same with commercial as it is with residential, but it's just so we can have, I'm sure in your budgeting process, it'd be nice to know what to expect in the next fiscal tax.
Yes, and let me just say, I talked with our financial advisor today about the bond refinance. Rates did move in our favor for December, and they're currently hanging there at this point. So he is reaching out to get some offers, and we hope to come back to you pretty quickly about what we can do. And as I stated, it is very favorable to us at this time. So I think that's going to be beneficial to us over the long period of that, what's remaining of that debt.
Very good. It's good to hear. Thank you. Okay. Any questions, board? Okay, all in favor? Opposed? No. This passes. Good. Okay. Dr. Murphy?
Board members, I also request at this time your approval of the school calendar, which is for academic year 2020 through 21. Dr. Simmons presented that to you at our last board meeting. We did survey our stakeholders, including teachers and parents and students, and I believe option B is the proposal that you have before you, and I request your approval of that calendar this evening.
Okay, do you have a motion to accept the recommendation of the calendar? Have a second?
Second.
Board, do you have any questions about the calendar? We obviously reviewed this, I believe, 60 days ago about the last year. Any questions on this? Okay, good. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, you got your calendar. Very good. Yeah, go ahead. You have a bid?
Yes, next board members, we have a bid for Hoover High School baseball uniforms and equipment. The lowest responsible bidder with the highest considerations for the school district or for the school over 5 years is that of BSN Sports. You see that we had 3 bids, and you can see that BSN is the better of those bids for us, and I recommend your approval of equipment bid 2019-02.
Okay, we'll have, do we have a motion first to accept this bid?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Okay, questions? Dr. Murphy, in the cost, this is coming out of what budget? Is it school use money, or can you explain where the money comes from?
This is the school money, athletic money.
Yes.
Mr. Montgomery, you're in the audience.
That's correct. It's coming out of athletics.
We ask and the public does too. Thank you. We appreciate you being frugal with these funds. So each school gets discretionary money each year, so the principals obviously have the final say with the supervision of Dr. Murphy as to where the money goes. So this is where this is. This is not additional budget money or an authorization, not altering our budget. So that's where this comes from.
Actually, athletic money versus your discretionary money?
Yes, ma'am. It's coming out totally out of the athletic program. Money received from gate receipts, boosters.
Thank you for correcting me. So, okay, good. No, thank you. Sorry, misspoke. So this is budgeted out of your gate receipts, and so even better.
But they do get truckloads of discretionary money, right?
Not truckloads.
We appreciate Coach Irvin, athletic director, and you all being frugal under your supervision. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? So this passes for the baseball uniform. Okay. And Dr. Murphy, information report, segment.
Yes, several things that we want to share with you this evening. Berry Middle School capital outlay. I want to thank Tracy Hobson for constantly coming to the table and taking my phone calls as we continue to work and talk about capital outlay. And so, Tracy, I believe we have Rick Latham also with us this evening, so I can't see you for the podium, but Rick, I think you're going to share with us this evening. Board members, as they're making their way up, we're going to share with you a little bit about a preliminary design. We're talking about 18 classroom expansion. We're going to get an estimated cost for you and over time a timeline that would help us. I will remind you that built into FY19 budget is predominantly a focus on the River Chase Career Connection Center. And in our FY20 budget, we really began to focus on the expansion at Berry Middle School. So we'll have a few costs encumbered as these guys start to work toward designing and planning this facility for us, but you will see this built into our FY20 budget. So with that said, thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you, and thank you for allowing us to work with you again. We really appreciate that.
You do a great job for us.
Well, thank you very much.
And I'll go look and see.
Thank you. What we're going to show you tonight is possibilities as we go on further in design. There may be some things that change as we go. But this is our initial idea for base bid would be 18 total classrooms. It would be the connection of the building. What we have here, and I'll let Sean explain a little bit more on the floor plan, but what we have here is just to show how we're expanding the building to match the existing architecture. I think there may be a slide or two that would show some color to that. To show it, we're matching the existing colors and the design of the existing facility, so it would not be a complete departure. So this will be a 3-story facility, and it will have 6 classrooms base bid per floor.
As Rick said, this plan shows what would be the potential full build out, which would be 8 classrooms per floor. So that would be planned for in the 6 classrooms per floor, and you still have room to add an additional 6 classrooms per floor. So that's what that's showing there. This is a site plan of the addition. The main entrance is, well, the laser really didn't work on it, but you can see the main entrance down to the bottom right. So the addition would be to the left of the school. It was set back a little bit from the face of the existing school, but very similar architecture, colors, brick, etc., roof, and all those sorts of things. And that would be the current layout that we proposed there.
One of the things that we did study with Dr. Robbins was the traffic pattern. We talked about bus loading, unloading. We talked about the number of buses that would load in the front as they currently do. This site picture here shows the buses loading in the front. It also indicates the pattern of the bus loading in the back of the building as well, so you can have separate loading. We're maintaining the existing car traffic loading, unloading that would be to the right of the existing building. Classroom addition is shown there as well. We've studied the location of utilities, connection of utilities, so all of those things have been taken into consideration with the location of this building. This can be constructed without impacting the existing operation of the building. So the last thing that would be done, which would be over summertime, would be the final connection, which really is just taking down 2 existing door frames. But we maintain existing fire exits, all of that during construction. So it's not simple, but at the same time, it's a cost-effective solution.
Is it messing with any parking? Is it taking
No.
any? Okay.
It is not.
It looks like, is that expansion of the parking spaces included?
That is an area that the parking can be expanded.
Yeah.
That's correct.
That indicates 116 parking spaces. That would be an alternate to the.
Right.
To
And that's a bunch of money.
From a classroom size dimension perspective.
Matches existing. Exactly, matches existing. So, with the classrooms, the toilets also are there, so that's built in, new toilets for the tower as well. So
We have required tornado shelters, I think.
Yes, sir.
That's built into the cost. At this point, we're projecting the budget for the base bid facility to be $7.5 million. Again, that would be studied as we go. We feel comfortable with that number based on numbers of today plus some projected increase over time, but we feel very comfortable with that number.
And what's
hopefully we would be under that. So.
And what's the additional square footage that you're adding to the suite?
It's roughly 24,000 square feet of addition. We project bidding the project in October of this year, and then we think it would take approximately a month to advertise and bid, and then a month for contract award, and then a complete year to build the facility. So we look at occupying December of 2020.
Mr. Kelly, to your point, most likely what we do in this scenario, because it is adding instructional space, we have to have the storm shelter, so most likely the bottom floor would be the storm shelter of the school, and then the other 2 floors would be.
In the storm shelter, since you're doing 6 rooms, 3 floors, what is it incorporated into a classroom? Is it especially, it's not,
Correct.
You can't be looking.
That's correct.
Okay.
The way the code, there's a certain percentage that you have to give for unencumbered space. So that's built into the number and the square footage. It's 5 square feet per student. So, and it's not built for the entire student body, it's built for that particular edition.
Looks good. And
That looks good to me.
you fish them across the tracks. So yeah, I'm glad you brought up the questions on the buses and the traffic.
Well, the traffic was my only.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Next, eBoard Solutions. We know it best as eBoard Solutions. Under the umbrella of eBoard Solutions is Assembly. Assembly is a grant that we've received that will allow us to have access, board members, to 3 modules that will help our work at this table. One of those modules will assist us with board meetings so that your agendas are accessible to you. We've actually created our own with a live electronic opportunity, thanking our IT, Brian, and others who've worked on that. But this assembly process will allow us at the table to be interactive with each other, to be interactive with the agenda, There is a second module that will allow us to have ready access to any documents. So if we needed to go grab and pull over and take a look at the strategic plan, we could do so as we sit at the table. If we needed to look at board policy or certain section, we could do so. So that module will also be available to us through Assembly. And the third is policy administration. So as we change, edit, delete, whatever way we address our board's policy, this module will allow us to be able to keep that updated in real time. It shouldn't be this complex, but I think Brian and maybe Tara and others could testify to this. You know, when you put your policy manual in Word and you try to pull it over to Google and you try to add something later, it gets to be a mess. And so this module should assist us as we're editing, updating with our policy manual. So we have 3 modules that are available to us. January the 30th from 9:30 to 3:30, 5 of us, not the board, but I and 4 of my staff members will go to Montgomery. We'll go to Montgomery for training. Brian Phillips will be going with us with IT, Jason with the side of public relations. I will be going, Tara will go in terms of policy administration, and Peggy will go as our secretary to the board. So the 5 of us will have training. I'll know a little bit more about how we come back and unfold that to you after that meeting. So just stay tuned, but I did want to mention to you our training. I wanted to talk just a minute about strategic plan also, and to talk to you about some of the things that we're doing to get our focus really honed in on our strategic plan. One thing that we've done, you know, everybody refreshes themselves perhaps and comes back with resolutions at the beginning of a new year, and one of the things that I've wanted to do and we're now doing is we have an executive cabinet by name, and we've identified the people who will serve on that cabinet: Dr. Simmons, Dr. Dodson, Dr. Jeter, Dr. Lamar, Jason Gaston, Dr. Smith, Deborah Smith, Claire Jones-Moore, Mary Veal, Bob Lowry, Tina Hancock, and Brian Phillips are now the executive cabinet. And one of the things that we're going to take on is these are so overused words, but we're going to be intentional and purposeful about what's going on with our strategic plan. And looking at each of our goals, each of our sub-goals, being responsive to those particular goals and making sure that timelines are being met, that the strategic plan is being adhered to, that if we need to come to you and say, hey, we need to edit or change, that we can do so. And so I'm excited not only that that'll be a part of the work of the executive committee, but lots of other things. We've already had a couple of meetings. One of those was very brief, but the other was to really start talking about our schools and how can we as a central office staff begin to assist our schools more to serve them, which is really the purpose of a central office. How are we supporting principals? How are we supporting teachers and students in our schools? So you'll start to hear us talk a little bit more about our executive cabinet. And but I did want to take just a moment. We'll meet once a week on Mondays at 1 o'clock, and our time will only be 1 hour committed to each other, but we're going to try to make it a very powerful 1 hour to figure out what the work's looking like and how we help each other, most particularly our schools. If you would take the strategic plan for just a moment, and let me mention some things that we've already done or that we're doing. If you look at page 1, goal 1, students will grow and achieve immeasurable knowledge and skills through equitable access to relevant, rigorous, and engaging instruction. We believe our recent report card gives us some evidence and some opportunity for a kudo here. We're very pleased that our school district received an A on our report card. We can talk to you more over time about what that A looks like and means, and areas where we need to continue to focus. And certainly we're not walking on water, but we're very proud of that A, and we'll continue to work hard to maintain that. We do know from our report card that we need to focus a little bit more in terms of special needs students. And we also know that we need to focus on our English limited learner students, our EL students or ELL students. And so those are some of the things that it didn't take the report card to tell us, but it was fairly transparent, at least in some of our schools, that we need to refocus some time and energy. If you would look at page 4 with me, enhancing learning support for struggling students in the lowest quartile of achievement, and to ensure that they're having equitable access to education. One of the things that we're talking about with our executive cabinet is how do we move forward in terms of working with younger children? How do we put in place some of the Alabama First Class Pre-K programs? And Alabama is noted for its first class pre-K programs, and I think it's time for us to write for some of those grants and to try to pull some of those pre-K programs to us. Mm-hmm. In my ideal world, out there some years perhaps removed from this date, I would love for us to have an early learning center where we are focusing on children who otherwise, unless we intercept them early, are not going to be coming to school ready. They're not going to be prepared for learning. And I think that's part of our obligation, is to prepare children to get to us and to be ready for us and to be ready for learning. If they start behind in the very beginning, it's almost a never catch up ordeal for them. And so I'm excited to begin to talk, and I've asked Claire Jones-Moore and Dr. Simmons and of course Dr. Jeter with curriculum to really begin to focus on Alabama First Class Pre-K programs, and maybe at some point in the future we'll have an early learning center. Prior to that, I think what we'll do is we'll write some grants and hopefully get 2 or 3 or 4 of those classrooms brought in so that we start to see it and how does it work and how does it feel. Sometimes those programs are grant-based and sometimes they're tuition-based, and so we have a lot of study and review that we need to do about what does that look like for us. But we're going to write for those grants and cross our fingers and pray we get some of that money brought to our children here in Hoover. If you look at page 5, it talks about human and financial resources. Mary and Christy and Carrie, the whole HR department, has been at the table a lot with WIT to talk about human resources in our school district. Not only how we go out and recruit, but how do we provide orientation to people once we recruit them. And after orientation, how do we continue to provide them the support that they need to grow as professionals? And then after we've made this huge investment in them, how do we retain them so that they want to stay with us here in Hoover? And so those are some of the pieces of the work that Mary is working on with WIT. On the financial resources side, financial resources are utilized in an efficient and effective manner to support high-quality classroom instruction. Board members, I'd propose to you that one of the reasons we put the lid bill resolution before you a couple of months ago is because we need additional resources so that we can afford the high-quality classroom instruction that we know we need to provide our children. We obviously made a commitment as a school district. It's my understanding when we started in 1988, one of the pillars of this school district was that we wanted smaller classroom sizes. We wanted a ratio that made more sense than 30 to 1. Mm-hmm. And we've been very intentional about keeping smaller classrooms, and that costs money. We're enjoying how Hoover continues to grow, but with that growth comes children, and they knock on our door and they come for us to educate them. And so that piece of cost is there. And then buildings compromise over time. And we need to take care of what we already have. And so with that comes cost. And so I would suggest to you that we put before you the resolution for the lid bill. I do want to acknowledge our city council and thank them this evening from this table how much we appreciate their unanimous support for this resolution to move forward now to our legislators. As you all understand this process, once it goes to our legislators, they'll grant us permission to bring it back home and to put it back in front of our taxpayers. And then we'll be encumbered, board members, with talking to our public about why it makes sense for them to bring on to themselves some additional ad valorem cost or property cost.
Would like to recognize Councilman Murphy. We thank the council very much for the support, the support of the mayor, even though it's not a vote. We appreciate the support. It's unanimous, which is extremely important. Our legislators have said as they nurture this through the legislative process, that they hear from the board unanimously about the norm getting to the lid, and then also our city council. So it's a team. The city certainly supports our schools. The 2.4 mills, Dr. Murphy's done a great job going through it. I won't go through the formula again, but should it get through the legislature, we think it will, then there'll be some more information following there. But thank you, Councilman Murphy, and please thank the council and mayor for their support.
Thank you for all y'all do, and thank you for the long-term planning for educating all kids. So I have full confidence in Dr. Murphy and the board that we're going down the right path.
Thank you for saying that, and I will piggyback on that by saying it is our obligation to prepare the school district for its future. You know, we're all long-term to a point, and then we hand the reins over to others, and I don't think that we should be living selfishly just for this day or for this year, but how are we preparing and planning to leave the school district in a much better place? And I think the lid bill is exactly that, as we try to prepare the school district for its future. I want to thank you also, Mr. Murphy, thank you, and thank you for your kind comment. Our city also finished annexing the Pelham property to us, and that last piece was annexed to us as of this, or to the city, as of last night, so that's another thank you. We appreciate that. Page 6, the developing the long-term plans. This talks about the care of our buildings and grounds. It talks about capital outlay, and again, I think this is just additional evidence why we should be having the conversation with our public about the lid bill and asking their support for that. Developing a plan to increase revenues and reduce debt. Page 7. Again, this is about, okay, if you only have X amount of money and you look into the future and you realize you're going to need to have more money, how do you bring some additional revenue to the table? And I again say to you that one approach is that of us having the lid bill before our public, and look forward to that, making it legislatively and back to our taxpayers. Tina's done a great job of helping us look at our budgets and stay tuned to our budgets and being thoughtful about our debt, and again, she shared with you this evening the bond piece that she continues to study and work on in terms of maybe getting us the very best bond deal brought back to the table. So some of her work certainly also aligns here. And then just quickly, if I could mention a couple of other pages. If you look at page 9, as our executive cabinet sat together, we realized that we had this pretty goal 3 to achieve unitary status as an assignment for all of us, but very specifically we had sort of laid that at the feet of Dr. Smith. And now that we have Dr. Lamar in place, and he is our Director of Equity and Educational Initiatives, it makes sense for us to come back, excuse me, and to revisit those to whom different pieces of this work is assigned. I will also say to you as we move forward, I anticipate in the next few weeks to month that we will be sharing with you the possibility of a community meeting. We are working with DOJ and LDF in terms of a consent decree for unitary status. And the Department of Justice has indicated an interest in us having a community meeting that they would lead, and that they would share that consent decree with our public, give our public opportunity for comment and for feedback. So I kind of share that as a notice to you that perhaps in the next 4 to 6 weeks, I don't really know the time frame, we'll probably be holding a community meeting to talk about the consent decree. And I really do think I'm near the end, so bear with me. You know, I'll get excited and talk forever. If you look at page 13, ensuring that clean, safe learning environment, again, this is not only important in terms of acquiring unitary status, it's our obligation to our existing buildings that we're monitoring and improving. Student discipline is on page 14. There are 2 things I'd say about that. Thank Dr. Simmons for getting us training in positive behavior intervention support. I am looking forward to the impact that PBIS is likely to have on our schools and thus our discipline. We're hoping to decrease discipline, obviously. Dr. Lamar even shared with me what I think is a terrific idea this week, and that is let's start tracking discipline by school by month. And then let's back up longitudinally and let's look at that over time. So can we find certain periods of time when discipline seems to elevate itself? You know, is it associated with Halloween? Is it associated with leading into holiday? When are these troubling times for us? So he has some really good ideas about how we really start tracking this discipline data so that we can talk about it from a data perspective and not a I think, I suspect, and I believe, but we've got the data behind us to take a look at that. And I appreciate his thinking about how we do that. So, board members, this was just an opportunity to say to you, yes, we have a strategic plan. Yes, we're working the strategic plan. Yes, we're gonna become even more intentional about making sure that we're making progress with this plan. It is a good plan. We may come to you at some point and say we want to tweak or change or address some things. We hope that you'll be amenable if we have such a need to do that. But just wanted to share a little bit about the strategic plan. Any thoughts or questions?
This is very helpful, and I know we started this process in 2018. You laid the draft out and we started it, and this is very helpful for us.
We're really chipping away at some things. Everything from take a simple time clock change, which we knew some of what we were doing with some older ways of checking in and out weren't working as well. So I'm really pleased that our people, our not only school leaders, principals, but central office staff are taking their pieces of the work and really making it happen.
I noticed we even have motion sensor lights in some of the rooms. So every little thing. Yep. Thank you and the staff for doing this.
Thank you. And then I want to just share with you Alabama Accountability Act. Board members, you may recall the Alabama Accountability Act passed the state legislature, I believe it was February the 28th, 2013. That's pretty etched in my mind because I remember that bill going in as a flexibility bill that came out of a conference committee that night as the Alabama Accountability Act. And so there are just a few things that I would share with you regarding that, and that is that the Alabama Accountability Act, $30 million annually can go into the Alabama Accountability Act. There's what's called SGOs, Scholarship Granting Organizations, we're going to do a little additional study. Our staff is. Tina's already taken a look at some of this, but we really want to see what has been the impact of the Alabama Accountability Act on our school district specifically. You may read some articles out there where a number of school districts, it was initiated by Baldwin County, decided to put a resolution before their board to ask for a repeal to the Alabama Accountability Act, and several school districts since that time have followed similar suit. I think the conversation is really about should the Alabama Accountability Act be repealed, which I do not anticipate will happen, or should there at least be a moratorium on no additional money beyond the existing $30 million? And legislatively, that has increased. I think it started out at $25 million and it went to $30 million. There's been a push, I believe, last legislative session to get to 35. So I simply want you to remember that the Alabama Accountability Act is out there. There are those student scholarship granting organizations. If $30 million isn't getting into the Education Trust Fund annually, then you know we're being impacted because we're part of the public education that dips into that Education Trust Fund. So let's just study this a little bit more. Let's watch it. Let's track it. I want to try to be pretty definitive about what its impact is on us as a school district so we can talk about that. I certainly don't have a resolution to put before you this evening, but you will be reading, I think, more about this, particularly as March the 5th approaches and the Alabama legislative session goes into session. So just a little bit about Alabama Accountability Act.
Okay, if I could speak on that, Dr. Murphy. Accountability Act, basically, it's a good read if you want to read it, and you'll get mad, or I did. They basically are committing dollars from a deduction on your state tax return and they're committing the dollars, and rather than out of the general fund, they're committing the dollars out of the education trust fund. So that's a simple version of what's going on. The SGOs were created by the legislative act. It's basically the common slang term juice money for somebody just to broker the money between the donation and getting to use. This bill was sold out of the legislature as being something for helping very needy kids that were in failing school districts as defined by the legislature, which was part of the act, the 6% schools. So the position is, and there's no position by the board because we haven't addressed it by resolution, but we are not against helping needy kids nor helping them get better schools. We are against, I am against committing education trust fund dollars for pre-existing schools where the students or families do not need the money. So this is a long conversation. I can talk forever, as you know. So anyway, thanks for taking a look at this. There's several districts that have stepped out and passed resolutions asking the legislature to rescind this. You can bet that when the session comes up in March 5th, respectfully, the Pro Tem will probably introduce another bill to extend the college scholarship. That's very interesting. The IRS ruled there were double dipping tax deductions on this. You deducted your $7,000 straight line deduction off your tax return as though you're donating to a church. In other words, it was that serious a deduction. Not just reduced your AGI. Also, they have been where you could deduct it off your federal tax return. So that's double dipping. The IRS ruled that could not happen. So the value of that, basically you could donate $7,000 and get a $14,000 deduction. The IRS has since come back and discounted that. I promise that's all I'll say tonight. But it's taking money out of education trust fund, which affects the overall public education out there.
And the last thing I'll say about that is in an article in the Montgomery Journal, I was trying to see the date on it, but since 2013, $137.4 million has been donated to the scholarship granting organizations through the Alabama Accountability Act. This is money that otherwise would be going into education trust fund coffers, and obviously those are resources that are in place to support all of us. The cap on that is $30 million every year can be set aside for that. So let's be thoughtful. Let's think about its impact on us, and we can continue the conversation.
Thank you for bringing that up. Would like to take a first approach with the assembly program. I think we didn't get a grant, or we got you applied, or the staff applied for a grant, and we were awarded that for assembly to offset the cost for a certain period of time, I believe. So.
That's right. So we'll have it for a year to be able to use those 3 modules. There are other modules that's associated with it. The 3 we have access to were a part of the grant, and so we're excited to see how that works for us. It perhaps will have us with less paper shuffling around on the desk, but there's some good modules there. I've used it in a previous school district that I was a part of, and it worked well, and I think it's even been refined further since that time. And lastly, under my report, I'd like to ask Dr. Smith, this is our last board meeting prior to our advanced ed team coming in. I want to remind us as a community, and certainly our board, that advanced ed is about to happen. We're drawing nigh. Dr. Smith, would you just remind us of any critical points?
Good evening. I see that they're looking at my shoes. They're a little distracted.
We all look at her shoes when she comes in the morning.
So we are officially 27 days away from the Advanced Ed Accreditation Review Team coming. And I don't know about you, but I'm very excited about that. Just for clarification for some people who are in the room, Advanced Ed is a nonprofit, non-governmental organization that accredits primary and secondary schools throughout the United States and internationally. Advanced Ed was formed in 2006 by the consolidation of the pre-college divisions of 2 of the United States regional accreditation organizations, the Commission on Accreditation and School Improvement of North Central Association of Colleges and Schools, and the Council on Accreditation and School Improvement of the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools. In 2012, the Northwest Accreditation Commission joined Advanced Ed. They have served more than 27,000 institutions, and we look forward to the insight the team can provide us as we continue to develop and implement strategies to improve teaching and learning. The 6 team members will be visiting our district, and they have been chosen by Advanced Ed and are skilled, highly trained educators from across the country. The engagement review team will arrive on Sunday, February 3rd, and officially begin their review on Monday, February 4th. On Tuesday, they will spend the majority of the day visiting our schools. Their final day will be Wednesday, February 6th. They will begin the process of creating the report to submit regarding their findings, but no official report will be given. It is also important to note that the process has changed, and there will be no formal exit meeting or called board meeting at the conclusion of their visit. I would like to thank Dr. Murphy and the board, school and central office administrators, the faculty and staff of Hoover City Schools, and our parent and community stakeholders for your responsiveness, dedication, and support you have provided me during this process.
Dr. Smith,
yes.
This was the transition from Sachs credit, is that correct?
Sachs.
I learned when Dr. Harrison was here. So
yes.
This is, a lot of people may recognize it as being Sachs, which was accreditation prior to this. So it is extremely important. Thank you for coordinating that. I guess you can share that the board will be interviewed individually on the same day, so they're trying to see if we understand what we're doing.
Absolutely.
It's kind of scary.
Thank you.
Board members, I'll say to you again, I think I said this last time, Dr. Smith has done an excellent job of leading this process for us. So, Dr. Smith, thank you for that. Ron, I need to put you on the spot for just a moment. Can you give us a quick update? RC3, he was so excited and giddy when he came by the office because they were back in the building today. It's just like a little boy there.
Got some of the dirt on my shoes. Tonight, things are going very, very well. I was just there today with the faculty. Was able to walk through a couple of weeks ago with Mr. Kelly and Ms. Bauman and other board members. Welcome your opportunities to get a hands-on visit as well. But it's exciting. Right now, it's just dirt and concrete and a lot of people working, but they're on a good schedule. And so things are progressing according to plan. We'll be in schools next week, starting to the recruiting process with students.
Yeah. Talk about that a little bit more. Recruiting students and informing parents. Can we address that just a
Yeah,
minute?
we'll be going into career prep classes, which is where our high school students begin their 4-year plan for high school and make definitive plans for the future. So we want to make sure that they are all fully informed of their options, because as 10th graders, they'll have the option of coming and participating in the programs in River Chase next year. We'll also be having some nights. We want to ensure that parents have an opportunity to hear what parents hear. This is grown-up stuff. We're going to be training the same way people train out in the workforce. So we want to make sure parents are fully aware of what the opportunities the kids are having, but also the responsibilities that go along with that work. But so we'll have several evening events scheduled, as well as various activities through the school. We have individual students who've reached out wanting to talk to our teachers about the program, and they'll be doing that as well. So the tank's full of gas. We're ready to run. Okay. Thank you.
That concludes my report.
Thank you. One thing, board, I haven't discussed this with you. We might want to consider, doesn't require a vote, a consent agenda, which allows us to list what we're going to vote on, but maybe the minutes from the prior meeting, setting certain routine acts by the board can be put under a consent agenda. If we decide to do that, then you still, if you wanted to discuss something and have a separate motion and vote, we could do so. So the council started doing it, and it's legal to do so. It's not to avoid conversation, it's just routine things that most likely will be approved without discussion. So it'll save us some time. So you can listen to us talk more. Board, do you have anything, any questions? Thanks for being here. Our next board meeting is February 12th, 5:30. So we're adjourned. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.